Hey everybody, welcome to Morning Coffee. It's your girl Tammy coming at you on this Friday with an encouraging word. Happy Friday to everybody. Hope everybody has had a great week. I am just going to hop right back in. If you had joined us on Wednesday, you know that we had started a new topic, and we're talking about the topic of faith. And on Wednesday, we talked about what faith is, why we need faith, how we can grow in our faith. And so today we're actually going to just continue on, and we're going to give some examples of great faith in the Bible. So I'm just going to hop right in. If you are new to this channel, my name is Tammy. This is a Christian-based channel, and we just give an encouragement word on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays to increase your faith and deepen your walk with God. So if that's something that interests you, be sure to subscribe, and you will get an encouraging word 3 days a week. So let's hop back in. We are going to be looking in Hebrews 11, which I call the faith chapter. And we're going to start at verse 7 for our first example of biblical great faith. So it says, "It was by faith that Noah built an ark to save his family from the flood. He obeyed God, who warned him about something that had never happened before. By his faith, he condemned the rest of the world and was made right in God's sight." So it was by faith. Now, remember on Wednesday, we said that faith is basically believing what God said. Faith is trusting God, trust in his word, trust that when he says something, that's what he means and he's going to do it. So Noah had to there had to be some serious trust there, because here you have Noah and his family. They have never seen rain before. But yet here God is telling him, I want you to build this big old boat. I want you to build this ark. I'm giving you specifics of how to build it because I'm about to flood the earth. So that takes some serious trust. You are the only one that has found favor in God's eyes. And he's telling you to build this boat, build this ark. Even though you've never seen rain, you don't know what a flood is, but you have to take God at his word. And that is what Noah did. And Noah ended up saving not only his life, but the life of his family, his sons' wives, his wife. They were saved because of his trust in God. If we go on to verse 8, it says, "It was by faith that Abraham obeyed God when he called him to leave home and go to another land that God would give him as his inheritance. He went without knowing where he was going, and even when he reached the land God promised him, he lived there by faith." So again, here we have another example. You have Abraham, who was serving a pagan god. They were worshiping like the moon and the stars and things like that. He did not know God, but he met God, and God's like, "Hey, I want you to leave what you know. I want you to leave, the worshipers of all of these other gods, and I want you to come and go to this land that I'm going to show you." So he had to be willing to leave everything he knew, everything he ever knew, to go and follow to a place where he didn't even know where he was going. And if you think about that, that requires great trust. That requires great faith. That's just like me calling you up and saying, "Hey, I'm going to want you to move. I don't want you to go. I want you to leave your family. I want you to leave your relatives. I want you to leave everything you've ever known, and I want you to go somewhere. But I'm not going to tell you where you're going, and I'm not going to tell you what to do when you get there. You just have to trust me along the way." Now, most people would be like, "Tammy, you're crazy. I'm not going anywhere because I need to see the blueprint. I need to see, you need to give me directions. I need to know where I'm going. What's it like there, But he didn't have all of that. All he had was a word from God that said, "Go." That's it. And he had to be led as he went. And it says, even when he got there, it says, even when he reached the land that God promised him, he had to live there by faith. So not only did he have to get to the place by faith, but then once he actually got there, he had to continually trust God and live by faith when he was there. It says, "For he was like a foreigner living in a tent and so did Isaac and Jacob, to whom God gave the same promise. So they had to trust in God. They had to just believe without seeing, without knowing what was ahead, not knowing what was coming, but they just had to take God at his word and say, okay, God, if you say it, I believe it, and I'm just going to follow you and I'm just going to trust you. We're going to look at one more example, and that is Sarah. In verse 11, it says, it was by faith that Sarah, together with Abraham, was able to have a child even though they were too old, and Sarah was barren. Abraham believed that God would keep his promise. So Abraham promised God that he would be the father of nations. Now, Abraham was old, and so was Sarah, way beyond childbearing years. So this was they had to believe God for a miracle, because what he was asking them, or what he was promising them, did not make sense in the natural. It didn't make sense to their mind. It didn't make sense to their bodies, but they had to trust what God was saying. And in that, they received the promise. Now, if you know this story, even though they had faith and believed God, after a while, because it didn't happen right away, because the promise didn't come right away, Sarah tried to help God out and had Abraham sleep with, Hagar, which was not the promise, even though she did give him a son, but that was Ishmael, but Ishmael was not the promise. And sometimes we can do that too. If God tells us something and we want to believe, and we believe and we say, yes, God, okay, I believe you, it's going to happen. But when it doesn't happen on our timetable, or when it doesn't happen as quickly as we think it should, we tend to try to work it out on our own, or we tend to make it happen. Let's make this promise happen. I believe you, God, but I'm going to give you a little help. And God's saying, I don't need your help. I know what I promised you, and I'm going to bring it to pass. And it said Abraham believed that God would keep his promise. So even after Ishmael, the promise was still there. It didn't stop God from completing the promise that he said who was going to be through Isaac. So I just want to encourage you with that today, that if you are believing God, or if God is asking you to do something that just sounds like, okay, this is way off of, it doesn't even make sense. It has to be supernatural. If he's asking you to go somewhere, if he's asking you to relocate, if he's asking you to give up something, for something else, and it just doesn't make sense to you, I'm encouraging you today to believe God. Trust that he knows best. Trust that he knows the plan. Trust that he knows the way. He knows what he's doing. And that every promise that he promises you, it will come to pass. He is going to bring it to fruition. So that is my encouragement to you today on this Friday. I hope you have a great weekend. Go to church this weekend. Spend some time with and fellowship with other believers. Get some rest. Rest your mind, rest your body, rest your spirit. And I will see you again on Monday. Be blessed.